Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. This time, we're doing something kind of different. A deep dive into just one golf hole.
Oh, wow.
The 11th at Augusta National.
Okay, yeah.
Now I know what you're thinking. One hole for a whole deep dive. But trust me on this one.
Right.
This isn't just about the golf. It's about how the sport itself has changed over almost a century.
You know, it really is fascinating how this one hole shows how player skill and course design are always kind of battling it out. Like, it's like a tiny little history of the whole sport.
Okay, so let's put ourselves there, right on the 11th tee box.
I'm ready.
You've got this valley in front of you, a narrow fairway going around a pond, and then there's this green that's way harder than it looks.
Yeah.
Tucked in between these mounds, they call it white dogwood.
Pretty name.
But it's also got another name, the hardest hole at Augusta.
I can see why.
Players average more than 4.3 strokes just to get through it.
Oof, that's rough.
You know, what's interesting to me is how this hole has changed over time.
It has.
It wasn't even part of Amen Corner at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah. After that very first Masters, they just renumbered some holes, and that's how those three, 11th, 12th, and 13th, got put together.
Huh. So that's how golf's most famous stretch came to be.
I was reading that the original 11th hole was a lot shorter, you know, for a different kind of golf.
Yeah, back then it was all about finesse, not just hitting it as far as you could.
So how did it turn into the monster it is today?
Well, at first it was a 430-yard downhill par 4.
Sounds pretty easy.
Right. But then guys like Hogan, Snead, and Nelson came along and started driving the ball crazy distances.
So the courses had to keep up.
Exactly. Augusta brought in Robert Trent Jones, the architect, to modernize the 11th.
So did they just, like, keep making it longer?
Longer was part of it,
Uh-huh.
but it's more about making players think, be strategic.
Right.
Jones dammed up the creek to make that pond, adding a whole new level of risk.
I see.
So now, if you miss short, you got to take a penalty stroke. Made players really think about how they were going to approach the hole.
That's pretty smart, but did Augusta ever worry about, changing the character of the course too much with all these updates?
They were always trying to find a balance, tradition versus innovation.
Yeah.
Like, they tried adding a second cut of rough in 1999 to make it harder.
Oh, what?
And then in 2004, they planted all those pine trees down the right side of the fairway.
Those trees are controversial, weren't they?
Definitely a big change.
Yeah.
Some people thought it made it too hard, penalized good shots.
Right.
But others liked the extra strategy it added.
I guess it depends on who you ask.
Augusta ended up taking most of them out in 2022, though.
Oh, okay.
Sure, they were really trying to find that sweet spot between tough and fair.
It seems like Augusta National is always tweaking the 11th.
It's true.
What's the main reason for all these changes? Is it just about keeping up with technology and the players hitting the ball farther?
It's more than that. They don't just want to make it hard. They want to make it hard in the right way. They want a hole that makes players use their brains, and really hit good shots.
So it's about rewarding skill, not just power.
That's it.
Okay, so tell me what makes the 11th so uniquely challenging.
Well, let's see.
I mean, we talked about the pond, the length, but what else?
It's a combination of things. First, you got that tee shot with trees and water on either side of the fairway. Got to be really precise with that drive.
Yeah.
Then there's that downhill approach shot, which can mess with your depth perception. Makes it tough to judge how far you need to hit it.
So even with a perfect drive, the approach shot is still a nightmare.
Pretty much. Plus, you've got the wind swirling through those trees, making club selection a real gamble.
Yikes.
And even if you manage all that, you're still faced with one of the trickiest greens at Augusta.
Oh, man.
Full of subtle breaks that can send even the best putts off course.
So you're saying the 11th demands a level of precision that most holes just don't.
Exactly. And that's probably why the average score is over 4 strokes. And don't forget about the mental pressure. Making a mistake on the 11th can throw off your whole round.
Yeah, I can see that.
It can plant those seeds of doubt that carry over to the rest of Amen Corner.
But what if you do great? Wouldn't a birdie on the 11th give you a huge boost going into the 12th and 13th?
Oh, absolutely. Conquering the 11th can totally turn the tide of a whole tournament.
Right.
That's what makes it so exciting. It tests your skill, your strategy, and your mental toughness all in one.
Speaking of big changes, wasn't Tiger Woods a major reason for some of the changes we see on the 11th today?
Oh, definitely. When Tiger came along, he hit the ball so far that courses had to adapt, and Augusta was no different.
I heard a story about Hootie Johnson. He used to be the chairman at Augusta.
Yeah.
He was watching Phil Mickelson play the 11th,
Okay.
and after a 361-yard drive, Phil was left with, almost a sandwich into the green.
Wow, really?
It's pretty clear that even with all the changes they'd made, the 11th needed some more work.
Sounds like it.
So how did Augusta respond to this Tiger effect? Do they just keep moving the tee box back further and further?
Well, they did move it back, yeah, to where it is now, 520 yards.
Wow.
But the bigger goal was to make the hole about strategy, not just how far you could hit it.
Makes sense.
They wanted players to think their way around the 11th, not just try to overpower it.
It's like a chess match, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
So it sounds like they had to walk this fine line between, like, protecting the course from these long hitters.
Right?
But also not changing the character of the course too much.
Absolutely. They wanted to keep the original design, but also keep up with the modern game.
I can see how that would be tough.
It is, but it shows how dedicated they are to keeping Augusta National challenging and relevant, even as technology and player skills keep changing.
We've been talking a lot about the design of the 11th, but let's switch gears a bit and talk about what it's actually like to play this hole.
Okay, yeah.
You're standing there on the tee box with everything we've talked about running through your mind, the history, the pressure, the challenge. What's going through a player's head at that moment?
Can you imagine the weight of that moment?
Yeah.
You're about to tackle aim-in corner. You know, one mistake here could ruin your whole round. The pressure is intense, especially on Sunday when the green jacket's on the line.
So it's not just about physical skill, it's a mental game too.
Huge mental game. The 11th requires skill, strategy, and mental toughness. It's as much a test of your nerves as it is a test of your golf game.
Can you break down the specific challenges of each shot for me? Like, what are players thinking about when they're standing over the ball?
Sure. So the tee shot is all about positioning.
Okay.
Do you aim for the middle of the fairway and risk having a longer approach shot?
Right.
Or do you try to cut the corner over the trees in the pond, maybe save some distance, but risk a penalty stroke?
That's a tough choice.
It is a real risk-reward situation right from the start.
And then once you've gotten past the tee shot, you've got that approach shot, which sounds terrifying.
It can be. A long iron, often downhill, and the wind swirling through those trees makes it really hard to choose the right club.
I bet.
Do you go for the green in 2 shots or play it safe and lay up to the right, take the water out of play?
But then you'd have a tough chip shot.
Exactly. Every decision has consequences. It's like a chess match out there.
And even if you hit the perfect drive and a great approach shot, you still have that crazy green to deal with.
Don't forget about the green. It's so deceptive. Those subtle slopes can send your putts in any direction.
So even a great shot can be ruined by a bad putt.
That's the 11th for you. It demands perfection, but hardly ever gives it up easily.
It's no wonder the 11th has seen some of the most dramatic moments in Masters history.
Absolutely. The 11th and all of Amen Corner have given us so many moments of both triumph and heartbreak.
That's true.
Like, who could forget Larry Mize's chip in to win in 1987? He holed out from off the green on the 11th to beat Greg Norman in a playoff.
That must have been incredible to see.
It was.
But it's not always about these amazing wins, right? Sometimes Amen Corner is where dreams go to die.
That's true. Remember when Rory McIlroy collapsed in 2011?
Oh, yeah.
He had a 4-shot lead going into the final round, but then, bam, disaster on the 10th hole.
Oof.
That triple bogey just threw him off. The whole of Amen Corner felt it, and it cost him the green jacket.
And what about Jordan Spieth in 2016? 2 balls in the water on the 12th.
Oh, man, tough to watch.
It was a reminder that even the best players can crack under the pressure of Amen Corner.
You never know what's going to happen. 1 minute you're on top of the world. The next, your dreams are slipping away.
It's what makes the Masters and Amen Corner especially so exciting to watch.
I agree. The 11th hole, with all its history, challenges, and potential for both amazing plays and crushing defeats, it's really what makes this tournament so special.
So we've talked about the history, the design, the challenges, and even the psychology of playing the 11th. So what's the takeaway for viewers watching the Masters? What should they be paying attention to when they see the pros tackling this iconic hole?
Watch the decisions they make. How do they approach the tee shot? Are they playing it safe or taking a risk? How do they handle the pressure of that long iron shot into the green? And watch their faces as they're reading those tricky putts. Every shot on the 11th tells a story.
It's like the whole tournament condensed into one incredible hole.
Exactly. As you're watching, think about everything we've talked about, the history, the changes they've made, the strategy, and all the drama. It's all there, waiting to be seen.
You know, it's amazing how much there is to say about just one golf hole.
It's true.
But as we wrap up our look at the 11th at Augusta, I'm thinking about how much this one hole really affects who wins the whole Masters.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
See, the 11th isn't just hard, it's also right in the middle of Amen Corner.
Right.
Like that point where you go from the front nine to the back nine.
So it's almost like a mental turning point in the round.
Exactly. It's like the gateway to that last stretch of the tournament.
Hmm.
If a player can beat the 11th, their confidence just explodes.
And that carries them through.
Yeah, but if they mess up,
Then what?
Amen Corner is like this, I don't know, this amplifier for any doubts a player might have.
Right.
A bad score on the 11th can affect everything else, how they make decisions, how they play the rest of the round.
So it's not just about the score on that one hole. It's about setting the tone for the rest of the tournament.
You got it. And it shows how important the mental game is at Augusta.
It makes sense.
That's what's so fun to watch. You see these amazing players, the best in the world. And they're not just fighting the course, they're fighting themselves.
It does feel like Amen Corner brings out those inner demons.
Oh, yeah. The whole area just has this tension, you know? Like anything could happen.
It's true. The design, the history, all that pressure, it all comes together there.
That's what makes the 11th and Amen Corner so captivating, you just can't look away.
Well said. I think we've covered pretty much everything about Augusta's 11th hole, from its beginnings to how tricky it is today. From strategy to the mental side, it's definitely earned its reputation as one of the toughest and most exciting holes in golf.
And like we talked about, it's still changing,
Yeah,
reflecting how the whole sport of golf is evolving.
it makes you wonder what the future holds for the 11.
I know, right?
Will they make it even longer? Add some crazy new hazards? Or maybe just keep making these little tweaks to keep it unique?
It's hard to say, but it's going to be fun to watch.
One thing's for sure, the 11th hole at Augusta will always be a place where history is made, and where you see those amazing moments of triumph and those crushing defeats. It's a test of skill and mental strength, and it reminds us that even in a game that seems so simple, there's always something new to learn and appreciate.
Totally. So next time you're watching the Masters, pay close attention to that 11th hole. See what choices the players make, how they handle the pressure, and you might start to see this one piece of golf history in a whole new light.
Great advice, and that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Augusta National's 11th hole. Thanks for listening, everyone. We hope you enjoyed it.